Hey, what's up, aliens, humanoids, and droids, and welcome to a Nerdy Bunch weekly review for Star Wars The Acolyte. Today we're here to talk Episode 7, titled Choice. And helping me make sure my choices don't lead to a lifetime of regret is my co-host Andrew. What's up, Andrew?
What's up, Dave?
Penultimate episode. We got a lot of answers, more questions. What are your spoiler-free thoughts?
Oof. It was a pretty densely packed episode. I think I've rewatched this one the most because it was also kind of an expertly filmed episode. At least I'm calling it expertly filmed. I'm not going to say they made mistakes because there's a lot of comparison between different insights we got from earlier episodes and us seeing either what really happened or a different view. I have a lot of questions myself. Like you said, we do have some concrete, evidence about some of the things we've been wondering about. So I enjoyed that. And yeah, some of our previous guesses have come true. Some have gone wrong, but I think all in all, it was a pretty strong episode, especially being, the next one is the finale, which I'm almost semi-worried that they're not going to be able to address all the questions in one episode. Is probably impossible. But maybe that's not a bad thing, right? Maybe that's a good thing because it leaves me wanting to know more. But yeah, spoiler free. I think I enjoyed just finding out a lot more. I myself, I know I was literally sending you messages, right? I think after I watched it, like, oh, I was wrong. I guess wrong. But so I think those moments were nice, right? They kind of continued this theme like they did with Chimera of like some things they kind of misled us on to intentionally be like, yeah, you focus on this so that they can kind of surprise us in other ways. So I enjoyed that, right? I think the show is doing a good job of just kind of revealing some things or making some things be mysterious and then, opening up even more questions. Like I said, I hope it's all going to come to a good ending next episode. But I think it was a pretty strong episode, just in filling in a lot of blanks.
No, I agree with pretty much everything you've said. And I think I'll add that even though there was some things with the mystery that we tried to guess and we got wrong or correct, I think they did a good job of, there was more nuance than just you're correct or you're wrong.
Yeah.
Some of them was just like, okay, you're correct, but these other things or this, previous, this was a flashback episode. I don't think that's a spoiler to say. We get flashbacks to episode 3, 16 years earlier. And I think this episode also highlights that one thing, that episode very much was told to us through a certain perspective.
Correct.
So it's like the truth is what you see. Doesn't necessarily, truth is subjective.
Yep.
And I think this episode did a lot of that. I mean, the title, again, we've said this in the past, the titles allude to a lot of what's going on narratively. And this episode is literally everybody making choices. And I think leading up to this episode, a lot of the show kind of hinted, almost kind of, like you said, teased us, almost kind of tricked us into this kind of, this is good, this is bad.
Yeah.
This person is good, this person is bad. I think this episode says, well, there's a bit of blur in those lines. There's a little bit of mix. It's not necessarily straight, and it's not almost saying these people are human or these people are, people.
Yeah.
And they'll make decisions based on what they believe is right at the time. And it's not necessarily as nefarious or as sinister as you might assume beforehand, even though the outcome is still the same, right? The decisions may have been made as the person believes is the right thing to do, or the people believe is the right thing to do. But even though the result of it is like, but I think this sets to humanize characters. Not necessarily it's a flaw. I like this show because it shows that even the good guys or the bad guys, everyone has these layers to them and why they are who they are and the decisions that they make. And I think, again, calling this choice, watching this twice, the first time I watched it, I was like, oh my God, this person is good, this person is bad. But watching it again, you're like, well, I understand what, with the information or with the perspective that they had, why that person or those people made those choices.
Yeah.
Even if I don't agree with those choices.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it, actually.
Yeah. And I think they did a really, really good job of that. I agree with you also. I think overall, this show does tend, as much as I enjoy things I enjoy, it does tend to have pacing issues. And so I'm also worried about, okay, the final episode, there's a lot that it could really give us. I mean, maybe they can give us everything, maybe not. But I do think there is kind of like I almost wish this episode came in slightly earlier.
Maybe.
In the season.
Like, even just one episode earlier, I feel.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
But
exactly.
it's okay.
But again, we'll see. And then some complaints that we've had in the past of not seeing certain things. We get to see this episode. I was like, yeah, finally, we get to see the thing that I've been wanting to see. That's always exciting to finally get to see that again. I think it's one of those things that just reminds us to be patient. Things are coming. We may not like it's not happened. Why haven't I seen this thing? In fact, the thing I was complaining about not seeing in previous episode, I think it's made stronger. The fact that we didn't see it till now. And I'm like, that's great. Okay, I can finally see it. All right, I think that's all for spoiler free. Let's go straight into spoilers. First thing I want to start off with is the fire. All right, we were right and wrong with the fire.
Yeah.
May did start the fire, but we thought there was another fire starter. There was a second, and there was not a second fire starter. It was just that one fire that kind of ran through the compound. But May was not trying to burn Osha, as Osha believed and made us believe. She was just trying to burn the book.
Yeah.
She had. And then as a kid would do when you're playing with fire, it got overwhelming for us. Like, shit.
And great acting, by the way, on her part, just delivering that, right? Like, I felt hoodwinked.
Yes. It wasn't like, I think another show or movie would have her be like, oh shit, I didn't mean to burn this. There's no dialogue at all. It's her reaction that tells you, like, oh shit, even running to even shout at her mother, like, mother, we need help. Like she actively did not. She just wants to burn the Jedi book.
Just fair.
That's it. Yeah. But then also on top of that, we get more context. What's her name? Her other mother. I always forget her name.
The one who goaded her on.
Cora.
Yeah. She was the real fire. She was a fire starter, honestly. Like,
exactly.
It's like me just coming up to you, be like, get angry. You're like, what? Get angry. Right. And I push you. I'm like, now that you're angry, go.
Use that anger. Don't let her leave. Use that anger.
That's what I didn't get. What was she actually saying? Was she saying kill her? Or was it just kind of more of a general, this is how we get our powers going. Get angry. All right, now go Hulk.
I mean, she even says earlier on in the episode, Coral says, I would rather die than have them taken away.
Yeah.
Things like that. So a lot of the real heightened anger that we saw in saw in May, seemed like it was being fed by her.
Yeah.
This wasn't, and May's a child, so she's going to listen to her. And obviously she's also highly emotional at the time with what's going on. But you can tell that she's super into it, like, okay, what do you need me to do? I'll do this. But at the end of the day, she wasn't out, as we thought, to kill Osha. As we assumed, again, that previous episode was very much from Osha's point of view.
Yeah.
And Osha was told that, May killed your family because of the fire she started. So of course that influences the story which she think. But I think, and also we find out how everyone dies. But let's go back a bit. All right, I think we go back to the beginning of the episode. The episode begins with the Jedi on that planet, and again we find out that they really genuinely didn't know that people were on this planet. They were kind of scouting around. I won't go into detail. They mentioned about the hyperspace accident that happened a while back. This is something that, if you want to know more about this era of Star Wars, the High Republic era, the hyperspace disaster is what started everything off. It's the kind of set everything in motion of this era, and it's established that there shouldn't be life on this planet, but somehow there's life, and that's why they are here. So it's not because they were looking for
children,
for Jedi, for children. But we get Tobin is just like, I don't want to be here.
He's so done. He's just so fed up.
I want to go back to Coruscant. I know in 100 years Coruscant's going to be destroyed by a Death Star, but I won't be alive by then. So I want to enjoy Coruscant. I don't want to be. And I like that because he's very much a Padawan and he's acting like how a Padawan would act, right? But Soul, and I think this is a triggering moment. Soul, there's a dialogue that Soul has with Indara, and where she says, this is why you don't have a Padawan. And I want to ask you a question. Soul, we're going to go through everyone's choices. Soul makes a couple of choices this episode. He makes choices to believe that I need to save these girls, specifically Osha. I need to save her. She's mine. Almost reminds me of Qui-Gon when he met Anakin for the first time. Like, I should do this. This is what should happen. Even if it goes against all the rules, I should do this. Why do you think there's such a conflict in that sense, between Sol and Indara, even to the point where we notice later on, even Indara's like, she's trying to avoid all the conflict. I feel like out of the Jedi, she's the most innocent, so to speak. In this, she was forced to make bad decisions, but she wanted to go in by herself. She didn't want to start conflict. What do you think about Sol finding out that he was the one that kind of really pushy about taking May?
Yeah, like I said, it's very interesting to see, I guess, him versus Indara, because she actually feels like the colloquial correct justice or correct way to be, right? And so he seems extremely emotional, especially for the whole point of Jedi kind of to be calm and all of that. He actually honestly seems similar to Osha. And then I remember there was a line that Kimmer said, right, about addressing the like has Soul addressed the dark that's still within him? Because I feel like I still feel like there's a little bit more. Like I said, I would watch a whole prequel show about Soul personally. Because his outburst, the whole episode was funny. It's almost like I wanted to be on his side based on the reasons for why he wanted to save these girls, right? But even watching it and watching it again, right? I was just like, bro, calm down. You're just being a little bit pushy. Like you literally are you're kind of kidnapping people if you really think about it,
right?
With this approach. And like I said, I kind of get it, right? From his view, he saw slices of actions where it always looked like the girls were being bullied or maltreated or
even about to be sacrificed.
Yeah, exactly. Literally. Right. Oh, that was so funny when May completely misquoted what her mother said, and I think that was great of the episode. Right, it was the whole idea.
That's what a child would do,
and that's what I had to rewatch a couple of times because I started doubting my memory. I was like, wait, what even happened? Like, what do I remember seeing? Because it's like you said, a child's memory is already so imaginative. They already probably struggle to recount specific details. But then there's not kind of like trauma and, witchy force power mixed in, right? So I'm sure that just like multiplies the depths of what the stories could be. So I think it's why I would really, it's probably my at least top 3 episodes of the season for me, just because I like when I'm able to, and you said something a while ago, this would have been a great show to binge. I would have probably enjoyed it a little bit more if I did, because I would have been able to like very quickly compare both episodes and been like, okay, so we're seeing 2 sides. What's the truth? What actually happened, right? Because clearly neither of you started the fire. You were both dreaming and sleeping, and this is not real. We're in Narnia or something. Like I don't know.
Yeah.
But just back to Soul. Like I said, I do like that we kind of get to see the fact that I knew he killed Mother. I literally did. I just knew it. The guilt that he had was just so vehemently kind of tied to, I did the worst thing possible, right? But like I said, just all of his actions leading up to it were just not, we're not very Jedi-like in terms of keeping a cool head, just having like calm demeanor, like reasoning what's going on. It was just almost like, oh my God, look at these girls. They got pushed. Let's go.
Right.
Let's go. I'm climbing the wall. I'm climbing the wall. Stop it. You can't stop me. He literally climbed that wall.
They forced the marking on her head. They're going to sacrifice her. And I like seeing that because, we've always been showcased the Jedi as these like monk-like perfect, almost perfect beings. And you're seeing him just his ignorance, right? Just because he doesn't and even Indara mentioned this, just because you don't understand the culture's practices doesn't mean they're wrong. And his ignorance really comes into play, and then obviously fueled by when May says, oh, Mother says we have to sacrifice ourselves. And like you said, it was a misquote. Mother says we have to sacrifice a part of ourselves. Makes the sentence very different when you say that. But Saul doesn't care. It's almost like she is confirming his bias. That's what I need to hear. Boom, let's go take them out. Let's go. And in fact, even when Indara is like, the Jedi Council said, no, she's too old. We know that rule. He's just like, no, I must. And he's super like, and what I like as well, it's one of these questions because it's not too different, and that's what I like about it. It's not too different from Qui-Gon, right, with Anakin, because the same thing, he's too old and Qui-Gon's really pushy. But in that movie, because we know, Anakin at this point is the hero of the story, where we're rooting for that. Like, yeah, come on, let him train Anakin. Let's go. Whereas this, you're like, come on, Saul. No, what are you doing? Because we already know, we already know that this is where it's headed. But what I like about this as well is that it makes you kind of question, because Qui-Gon says the same thing, and Saul says the same thing, where he says, I have a feeling the Force is telling me this is what I need to do.
Yeah.
And even Indara is like, is it the Force telling you, or is this your emotions telling you? You don't get it mixed up. Don't mix your emotions, your feelings for what's right for her. And that's what Indara says to him. So I really like that, because then it really makes you question when Jedi do say things like that. Oh, the Force is telling me. Is it the Force?
And I think it's a play. It's a play because I'm a Christian person. I'm brought up Christian, and like I too often I always make a joke to my wife that in the future when I'm president, I am gonna make you need a degree to be a pastor. And no offense, it's just because anybody can say, the Holy Spirit spoke to me. Right. And it's almost like we by default have to believe you, because it's kind of rude to say no, it didn't, or like, oh, prove it. And it's like, what do you mean prove it? I just how could you? Blasphemy, right? And it's the same thing, like, oh, the Force is speaking. Like, okay, I mean, is it? And if so, are you sure that's what it said? You know,
right?
Could you record it? Could I get a voice note from it just to be sure? So I feel like I've always saw those parallels, just very much like the Force, the Holy Spirit, like, you know, even intuition and like your gut feeling. Like, yeah, I just felt, again, is that your gut feeling, or are you hungry?
Yeah, exactly. And again, it's cemented at the beginning of the episode, like I mentioned, where Indara literally says to him, you know, because he disagrees with how she's training Tobin, her pupil, her Padawan. He disagrees with her, and she's like, and that's why you don't have a Padawan. And I feel like that's like an emotional stab. Like, ouch, fine. Like, I want. So he wants it so bad. He wants to have a Padawan so badly that he's allowing his emotions to take. I mean, shit. Even by the end of the episode, he and Indara almost go to like a fist fight because of this and his choices. You know. Speaking of the character's choices, let's talk about Tobin. We find out what happened to him and his what led to his regret, and a lot of it is cemented in his just impatience. You know, and I think again this speaks to kind of the Jedi a lot. You know, I think a lot of the Jedi internal problems come from somebody on the Jedi team just like, I don't like how the Council is doing it. You know? And I think this is part of that, when, you know, he just wants to prove, you know, we'll get into this in a bit, but he finds out that the what's special about May and Osha, that not only were they created, but they were, and I like that because you go to that rhyme, you know, always something about always two, but something about one, the girls rhyme. And that's what it is. They were one Force entity split into two, which I thought was really, really interesting. But he wants proof. So he's just like, goes straight away to attack, to go straight to the compound to gain this proof. But what I found interesting was that we get to see some kind of, I won't call it Jedi mind trick, because obviously it's a mother who does it to him. But we get to see his perspective on that and his kind of wants and fears. What did you think of Tobin, that scene, and what happens with his character?
So this is starting from the scene when first mother controls his entire
we're seeing his side of it,
and I thought it was a cool scene too. The little fact that I found from YouTube dissection was that, you know, in most of the scenes the Jedi's are exhaling and you see their breath and you don't see the witch's breath, but in that one scene you do see mother's breath because she's in his mind. And it kind of blew my mind, and I just said that on purpose. So yeah, watch that again to note. And there were a lot of parallels and extrapolations, and I just thought, like, how long was that in real time? I wanted to actually time
like seconds,
but like, yeah, literally like a couple of seconds, right? But the reason I like that scene for me was I feel like it gave a little bit more weight to when somebody's mind is controlled, right? Like that, when you see it from the outside, it just seems like, yo, bro, control yourself, man, or control your mind, bro. It can't be that bad. But then you see it and you realize that, wait, that was like 2 seconds. All right, yeah, I'd be freaked out too. Like, that's not a pleasant thing as well. And then it also it continues to, at least for me, I see the case against the witches because they're so powerful, right? But again, they kind of feel like the Jedi went with the stick to hit a bee's nest. Yeah, okay. Obviously, bees are going to come.
That's doing its own thing.
Yeah, that's
its own tree.
Like, literally,
it's not even anywhere near you.
And then you just come, and then all of a sudden you're starting to get stung. And you're like, right? And in a similar sense, because they are powerful, and I guess I just really enjoyed seeing kind of the more magical side of the Force, right? And
Magic with a K
magic
in the systems.
magic. And yeah, Torben, especially because he would have definitely had the weakest mind of the bunch, right?
Yes.
Of the ones he was with. So just them capitalizing on that and kind of just seeing him, I guess, like unravel a little bit. I enjoyed that. I enjoyed, his acting, even the fact that he's not a paperweight. When he was, lightsaber dodging bullets and hitting them back like a baseball bat.
I loved when he was spinning the saber.
He showed,
deflecting.
he basically showed, there's a reason I'm here, but at the same time, I like that again. The intricacies of this altercation, with the witches is that he's the weakest link, sadly, and that was just cool to see, just all sides of his mental breakdown, I guess.
And I think it's interesting, and we've talked about in terms of the show and pacing and characters. In a weird way, in this one episode, I connected to him more than I've connected to other characters in the show who had been there longer. Like someone like what's the guy that got killed? The black guy, Yord.
Yes,
right. I feel like I connected with Torben more than I connected with Yord as a character, and I think because I don't understand Yord as a Jedi. Who is he? What is he? What is his wants? Whereas I understand Torben a bit more in terms of being young and impatient, and he's sick of this shit. They've been there for 7 weeks. He just wants to go home. I understand why he does what he does, even if I disagree with him. And I think that's one of the strong points of this episode. That's almost a weak point of some of previous episodes in terms of characters. Because as much as I like as a visual, Yord and what's her other name?
I come back on the name. The one I like, Jackie.
Jackie,
yes.
Yeah. But even with Jackie, we don't understand like what is her personality like in terms of what are her wants and needs and things like that. And I think that's almost like a downgrade for the show overall. And it's like, you could have done it. Look what you did with Torben. Like I understand his passions and stuff in just one episode. I also liked with Torben. I liked because from the previous episode when we see him getting taken over, he bows down on his knees, and it makes it seem as if Mother made him physically like pushes him down. But when you see in the mindscape, she gives him a choice. It's almost like that kind of temptation, like temptation of Christ and things like that, where she's like, I know you want to be back home. I know you don't want to be here. I can help you. All you have to do is just kneel down. And so he makes a choice to kneel. It's not like he was forced. He was just given options and choices. And his weaker mind at the time kind of pushes him to kind of kneel down because he feels that she can offer him what his desires. And I love seeing that showcased. But I want to ask about Mother Indara, right? You mentioned about Saul killing her. I love that sequence, and it's something that we've seen in other Star Wars lore. I don't think we've seen it in live action, but we've seen it in the animated series with the Night Sisters of Dathomir. And in fact, I think Torben thinks that they are Night Sisters, and Indara's like, no, I don't think they are. But there's a similarity. And even if you've played some of the video games, you've seen them the Night Sisters use that kind of smoke thing to teleport.
Yeah.
Things like that. So it's not. So for those people who are thinking they just made stuff up for this new show,
I'm sure there's so many of them. I literally don't read comments for Star Wars shows. I actually don't.
Yeah, this show doesn't make up as much as people think. It just goes deep into the lore to bring things out that are already established. But my question to you is, in that sequence when they're about to fight, there's about to be a big fight, and then Anastasia, the mother, is just like, no, and then May runs out, but Saul thinks it's Osha, and so when Anastasia is turning to the smoke, you start seeing May start turning to smoke a little bit, and then when Anastasia gets killed, she says, "I was just trying to set Osha free." And one of the things we've noticed throughout this whole season is that she, as much as she wanted the girls to stay together, she was willing to give May her choice of saying, no, you can go. She wasn't resistant to
which was great. I love they showed us early on, right? Even against her own sisters, right? Because Mother C, sorry, I want to call her, I forget her name. Mother C was like, nah, bruh, we're all dying here. Like, what are you talking about? Oh, that was so funny.
But I want to ask, and I don't know if there's an answer to this, right? There's just a perception. What do you think she was about to do? Because she was smoke, and then Saul's like, "Oh shit," was she going to disappear and teleport everyone, like May away and Osha away somewhere? Because we know it's a teleportation thing, but we don't know what she was about to do.
I guess so, but because on first watch I was like, oh, so you come on, you overreacted. I literally rewound and I watched, and just to see her face, I mean, literally she looked like a demon. Like I don't know. To be fair, that's the one time I excused Saul. I'm like, yeah, that's fine, because I too would be like, what? Because he literally looked, and then what May's body started to
and he thinks
transfigurate.
Yeah.
Or whoever it is. I mean, point being, he was just like a child. Nah, okay. So in that moment, like I excused him because of the order of events, and I think I too would be like, I don't know what's happening here. That does not look like anything good. Nothing was bad, because I think, like you said, worst case she was going to transport her, but I literally don't know. What if she ingested her into her being, and it's like, you can't have the child. Now, now I am one. Like there's literally no way to know. It was not an obvious thing. Nothing you've seen before. And like I said, that's the one time I think I was like, so I stand with you. I'd done the same, because
though you can almost, and if we're going back to the Jedi police narrative, you can almost look at it as Saul killed a black man who was pulling out his wallet and thought it was a gun.
But when he saw the gun like forming in another kid's like arm, right? Like I feel like that was the key, because he wasn't, because she started turning to smoke and he didn't bring out the saber. He looked, he was like, oh, what is she doing? And then the child starts to, and he's like, ah, my God. but on the contrary, I do hear you. It definitely was like a,
because he goes stab straight away. Like, yeah, okay.
It wasn't even like hold by your neck, stop what you're doing. It was just like
no warning. Just straight away, just stab. And I think, I mean, I agree with you in terms of, and I think that's what the episode does a good job of, Saul's ignorance to their culture and their ways creates fear in him. And that's very real in our real world, right? A lot of problems, I won't say everyone, but a lot of problems that we have in the world and in history can come down to sometimes just not understanding people's culture and people's ways, and thinking, oh, this is how they're different, and so they're an enemy, or they're an antagonist. And I mentioned to you, I say he thought it was May because I don't know. Again, I don't know if there's an answer for this, but he felt very specifically about May over Osha.
Yeah,
I mean, about Osha over May.
Yeah,
it's not like, oh, I want to save these girls. It's like Osha specifically, and we know from what we've seen that May was the more powerful Force user. So why did he want Osha so specifically? And then to parallel that, we come to the present day of the show. Kaimir prefers to have Osha. So what is it about Osha that they both want? That's why you parallel Kaimir and Saul. They're almost the same in terms of they want a student, they want someone to train, and Kaimir says he made a mistake with May, and Osha's better. And it doesn't seem like Saul wanted either one or both. He specifically wanted Osha. In fact, even the final scene with him when he saves Osha, I understand he was trying to hold them both. He's not that powerful. He's not Anakin level where he could have just one hand saved them both. But clearly he was going to, he didn't look like he was like, oh, which one? Nope, he went straight for Osha.
No, he was like, which one's May? Okay, good. Like almost made a mistake there.
Right.
Almost killed the wrong twin. That's actually funny. No, it's a good point. And so this is where I have to worry with the show, right? Because I'm like, oh, are they going to answer all these questions? And then if I'm being honest, I don't necessarily have the confidence that I will be satisfied at the end, but I'm holding out, hope, because the show has surprised me in other ways, with mostly with the pacing we mentioned and just little things. Because I feel like each of these threads could be something, right? But why Osha, and what does this revelation do to Osha now that she's finding out, right? Because again, or at least I'm seeing this as assuming we're in. It's not like exactly, but that we're in Osha's head as she's wearing the helmet. Not exactly, but like that's how I see it. So when she comes out of this revelation or this Force time, is she putting up? Is she like a Sasuke? Like, oh, let's go blow up the village. I'm blowing up all the Jedi, or what comes next? I'm extremely curious to see what happens there.
And even for May, because in the last time we saw her, Saul was like, I have something to tell you. I've been wanting to tell you for all this time. What is her reaction going to be? What is he going to tell us some extra things that we don't know, or is he telling her all these events?
Yeah.
But for some of these events, she was there to witness the truth. So what can he tell her that she didn't know? Because May, I mean, Osha's the one that didn't know everything. May witnessed a lot. May's the one that saw Saul kill her mother. May's the one that started the fire and knew how it kind of went out of control. So what is it that Soul can tell her that she didn't already know? I find that interesting. One of the things, we get two revelations as well. I will go into them, but they're connected. One, we finally see, like I've been complaining about, Kalneka fight. At the same time, which led to, like we kind of guessed, which led to the scar on Tobin's face, which I thought that I thought it was a saber scar, but I like that it was more like just scratching his face in that sequence when he's pushing Tobin's face on the wall, and then Tobin's also blocking the saber at the same time and screaming. Brilliant scene.
That was pretty good.
Brilliant scene. I just loved it. But like you talked about Tobin being the weakest minded of it all, and this time when they were going for mind control again, he's like, no, this time I'm ready. And they were like, yeah, we weren't talking about you.
That was a great one too. I love those Hollywood moments. Like,
but it was great because in that moment they're still saying, no, you are the weakest one still, but he is physically stronger, so it's going to take all of us together collectively to control his mind. What do you think of the
orchestra witches? Because that was also, I love seeing the multiple women needing to control him, because it just further showed the gap between him and Thorben. Not in a bad way, obviously. It should be, but it was nice Jedi to see that. Yeah, because I like I guess in all shows I watch in fantasy, I like when there's like I like when you can kind of trace the power scaling. I don't need it to be 1 for 1, but I like to know that yes, he one witch will hold you 10 to 15. You know what I mean? Like, it's like there's a scale to these things, type of thing. So that was a really cool scene, and we called it. We knew it was going to be, but I thought it was a great fight. It was definitely enjoyable. I'm still, anyways, they have one more episode, because it now makes me more upset, because remember, we didn't see him versus Chimera, which is now like now that's a need. Before it was like I want to see it. Now it's like a no. I need to see it, because now we're seeing Wookiee not fight as himself. I want to see him under his own control and using like his own regular skill set, right? True. But yeah, that aside, poor Thorben. Thorben, right? Like, mentally attacked, physically molested. He just had. I see why he took a bow side.
Right.
He's just like, I can't.
You guys, I'm not talking to you anymore.
Yeah, literally. That was funny.
And that sequence led to another answer, which was, how did the coven of witches die? And it was Master Endara who quickly comes to save them from Kalnaka's fighting them, and she had to kind of literally sever the connection. Yeah. And I was reading into this. There was an interview with the writer, and they were saying how, for Endara's point of view, she doesn't know what's going on. She knows she has to react very quickly and do something, which led to I think that quick severed connection mentally led to the death of the coven women. Yeah, which I thought was really, really interesting. I will have one nitpick with that, because I think they could have been more intense visually, graphically, with showcasing that these women died and not just passed out.
Yeah, like their brains explode like wanted, like one by one. You see them pop,
exactly. Eyes rolling back, and just shaking or shivering or something. Yeah. They kind of just drop. And at first I was like, did they pass out?
I thought they passed out, by the way. Yeah. So after I was like, okay, fair. Yeah, that's tiring. Yeah. And then it's like,
exactly. Because I like the action. I like the fact that Endara is trying to force their mind out. Really? And also what I like is that when we see in previous episodes, we see Kalneka later, he'd been obsessed with the symbols and things like that. So it gives you a sense of maybe part of the essence of their mind was still inside of him, and so it's driving him crazy a little bit. So I did like that aspect. I just wish they were more graphic, and just to make it just more like visually disturbing that she just killed all these women in just one fell swoop, even if she didn't mean to. But I did like the fact that that wasn't how Mother died, even though her body was there. She had died earlier. I thought that was good to separate those two. Let's talk about Endara. Throughout this episode, I feel like she's been the voice of reason. I read one meme the other day, and it's like, this is what happens when you have a woman leading a whole bunch of men. The men are ignorant, they don't want to listen. They should just listen to the woman. And I feel like that's very true. If
she was so correct from episode 1. Like, I don't think she said one thing that's been wrong. I literally don't.
Like, if they just listen to her. She was from the very beginning telling Soul, we can't do this. Okay, fine, let's ask the council. Yep, the council agree with me. We can't do this. Okay, let me go speak to these women by myself to see what they're doing. oh, but there's a whole bunch of them. Yes, but it's women and 2 children. They're not they're not that much of a threat. No, let's just go in there. So like everything was pushed. At the very end, again, she's the one that makes. And I want to ask your opinion on this because I have my opinions. She's the one that tells the story, because at the end of it, Saul is finally, after his mistakes, willing to tell the council, and she says, "No, we can't tell the council. We have to tell this lie that May killed them all, and we took Osha, because you cannot let this girl. Now she's lost everything she's had. Now you're not going to give her her dream. Can't take this away from her." So what do you think? And I love this moment because it's the first time you see Indara really angry, because she was almost about to punch Saul in the face. She grabs him by the by the cuffs, and it takes Torben to tell her to calm down. That's the first time you really see her anger bubble to the top. So what do you think of her decision in that scene?
I love that because she's, to us, has been trying to do things by the book since the beginning, right? And I feel like there's nothing more frustrating than when you're in an I told you so situation, but not one that's just like, oh, we forgot to buy milk. No, it's like, bro, like, this is life and death. I'm inside it. Like, why? Why? I literally said the words. Like, what is wrong with you? So honestly, top acting from her. Again, I'm happy. I remember I was a little worried beginning in the season that we might not see more flashbacks with her. I would have taken more, but still, I think Trinity, because that's her only name, really portrayed and delivered excellently on the acting. You've mentioned this at times. Part of what is part of the merits of this show are some of the acting and portrayals from Kimmer, Soul, and Dara. These people, like, they really help sell just the chaos of the situation, right? It is both like a simple and not simple situation. Like, what happened, the Jedi went in when they shouldn't have and caused shit to get fucked up. But like, there's a lot of like depth as to the lies and not telling the counselor this time, and then like the whole concept of one lie leads to another lie, because you tell the counselor then, you can't tell them now, and then when you do it, then what are you going to say? When will you tell them you started lying? Like, there's just so much, and I feel like it all just bubbled together at Indara there, and she portrayed that perfectly. Where it's just, I mean, she literally held his arm like if I could break it, I would. But the what's his name, man? Arthur meme. Fist is just shaking the whole time.
I agree. I think, again, that as much as what happened as a result of that decision, again, like I said, this episode, people are making decisions in the moment because they feel this is the right thing to do. And for her, I think it's more prevalent with her, because it's right. It's like, okay, what's going to happen now is you're not going to still be her Padawan. The Jedi's just going to take her and dump her somewhere. Things like that. And this is going to be the worst thing that's going to happen to her. I didn't want to have to take her away, but we've just killed her whole family. She has nothing left. We can't do this to her. Even worse, And for the first time, someone's thinking about the child and not what's
for
best
once.
for them. Right?
Oh my goodness.
So I understand why she made that decision, even though ultimately she goes to regret it. But it's a decision that she knew she would regret while she made.
Exactly. That's the key. Like, and that's why I feel like she was so upset. Like, I literally know how it's like being over 30 and taking shots of tequila. I know I'm gonna have a great night, right? And I know tomorrow's gonna be rough, but let's go.
Whatever. This is what I'm doing. And I really liked seeing that. And it's almost she's one of the few of them where I'm like, damn, I feel so bad that you had to be killed too.
They need to retcon that or something. I don't know. It's just like, it's a little upsetting.
This episode goes into, and I touched on it briefly, it goes into larger Star Wars lore. For those who pay attention to the larger lore. One of the questions of Star Wars, as ongoing questions and narratives, has been this idea of creating life, right? Palpatine even says that to Anakin. There was my master Darth Plagueis found out a way to prolong and create life, which is how Sidious tempts Anakin into the dark side, right? Because even with what's her name's death, his wife's death, what's her name? The mother of Luke and Leia.
Padme, not her.
Yeah, Padme. Yeah, Padme. Yeah,
I was going to say Padme. I was literally about to say Padme. I literally thought, what's that Thai food? Pad Thai. Padme, yeah.
And Padme and things like that. And this story of Anakin doesn't have a literal father. He was almost created. There's almost like a messiah narrative to that. and this kind of gives us more with that lore. It talks about the virgins in the prequel trilogy. When they talk about the virgins, they talk about the virgins as being in a person, which is Anakin, and even the Jedi Council like, what, in a person? Usually the virgins is a location, not in a person. And this shows us the virgins in a location. We don't actually see it, and I'm assuming that's the big hole that the witches kind of do their things over. But they use the virgins in the Force, and this is something that's really interesting, is that the witches by themselves are not super powerful. The reason that they're powerful now is because they came to this planet that has a virgins which then they can tap into. Which is, we don't know the details, but that's what was used to create the twins. Together, collectively, the twins are probably as powerful as Anakin Skywalker. It's just that they couldn't create that into one body. They had to create. They are exactly the same. They are one split into two. That's like always two, but something from one. There's the rhyme that they say. So I thought that was really, really interesting to kind of look at, to kind of set up pieces for the future of Star Wars. And in fact, there's a lot of fan theories. One of them is that Chimera is actually Darth Plagueis, Palpatine's master, and through this, he's the one that kind of learns more about it, which will give the hints of the future creation of Anakin. So, how much of Star Wars lore do you know, and what do you think of these little teasers about it?
I feel like I know 75%. I'm like 70, which is a good amount. I'm not terrible, right? I need to get into more old comics, but I'm all for the theory of Chimera either being an original or an Darth Plagueis. I don't know. And this, I feel like, I've mentioned this in this episode. This is where I'm both excited and worried. And I'm like, what are they going to do? Like, could be, it's like, you're so close. Like, don't trip up now, because it could, it's a very nuanced thing. And this is what Star Wars has so much depth to the lore that it's shackle, right? Because you have to make sure it perfectly, like, falls within the lines of reason of what you've already told us, but also something fresh, right? So I'm literally standing on my tippy toes to see the connections. But I'm still guessing he's one of the original dudes of Ren. I don't know. The helmet just kind of felt like it. I'm willing to be wrong.
I mean, it could be.
But yeah, he could. Again, the whole Virgins thing, maybe my nitpick, and right or not right, whatever, I don't care. It's, for anything visually like a show, such a big essence like the Virgins, I feel like could have a better visual display maybe. So it's like how we're like, oh, maybe it's the circle. Like, I don't want it to be maybe. I want it to be like, like what's the Foundation? Foundation had it like big. You look out, it's like, oh, that's the thing, right? Yeah. I see the thing. I just kind of wish they kind of did that a little bit more. Again, just a personal nitpick, just to kind of give it more of an oomph of like, oh, that's a Virgins, and then make people want to actually look more into like, oh, what causes that power, as opposed to in that hole, very strong. You can't see it, but very good. Trust me. It's like,
one of the things interesting about Star Wars, especially the original films, is that I think over time new things and lore added to it. But I think at the time, people assume that George Lucas had the whole lore mapped out. No, he was making shit up as he was going along. And I think part of the challenge for modern stories, Star Wars stories, is kind of like, okay, how do we tap into those things he said as he was making it up, but retcon it to fit as if it was the plan the whole time. I think people forget that when new things get added. I'm like, no, he was making shit up as he was figuring it out.
It's not Game of Thrones.
No, especially in that time. Now when writers create new content for movies and TVs, they had this whole story Bible, the whole plan. We have 6 year plan, whatever.
Of course.
But at that time, he didn't know how big Star Wars was going to get. He was just making a movie, just adding new things to it. So, because even little things like in the prequel trilogy, they talk about the midichlorian count. The midichlorians are these small subatomic beings inside every single thing, and they're the reasons that people or humans or creatures can have the Force. The more midichlorians count you have, the more attuned to the Force you are. I remember people at the time hated that, because you're almost giving a scientific analysis of something that's supposed to be spiritual. And some people hated that, but because it'd already been done, they didn't want to backtrack on it. But now with modern Star Wars, they don't say midichlorian count, they say M count. And this show mentions that the children have a high M count. So I thought it was really, really interesting to see where that's going with that, because again, what's the future of May and Osha in this narrative? We know that they're more powerful when they're together, but one of them has been training their powers, one hasn't. So even if they're together, can they be more powerful, or has their time of power passed, or is it far down the future? Which brings me to question of, okay, where are we going down the line?
Yeah.
Do we only have one more episode? Do we have more seasons? Because one thing I didn't notice until the second viewing is that what's her name? I always keep forgetting the name. The other mother,
Mother C.
Coral.
Yeah.
She wasn't there. She disappears. So she's
Wasn't
still
where?
alive.
Where is there? Oh,
She
wait,
wasn't one of the ones that was killed.
Yeah, you're right. I
Yeah.
know what's funny. I had like, it was, right when she tried to push May and like get angry, I was like, maybe she's connected to Chimera. I don't know how. Like whatever. But like, I actually did not realize till you just said now that truly, because what's confusing is when Soul stabbed Mother, she was next to Mother. Because I remember she brought up her staff in defense. So then what happened there? She's like, oh shit.
Well, no, because she fights Soul for a bit. There's a fight with her and Soul.
Yeah.
Yeah, because she fights Soul for a bit, and then she's the one that mentions about Kalneka. It's like, oh, you shouldn't have brought him here.
So did we not see her go off screen? Or
no, we see her disappear because she disappears into smoke. Because when she mentions about Kalneka, coming and then he turns up, she kind of disappears into smoke, and we assume she disappears to join the other women in that group.
But we just never see her again.
We just don't see her again. So the question is, and I think you might be right that maybe she does have a connection to Chimera. You know, maybe she kind of, because again, there's a lot of anger in her already. You know, there's a lot of and because when you're dealing with the Force or the thread as they call it, whatever you fuels you back.
Yeah.
The anger or the positive or the negative, and I'm sure there's a lot of negative. And if she's alive, I could see her being the connection to Chimera.
Somehow, because there has to be a way for Chimera. Not has to be, but yeah, there has to be another thread, right? There's still something that hasn't been revealed yet. And Chimera, I'm like I said, waiting for the Scooby Doo moment. Where Chimera is like, actually, it is me, Mother.
right, this whole time, and we know. I always forget the name of her species, but we know she's the same species as Darth Maul, who was a Sith. In the series, so I'm curious to see, and I'm sure you don't just have her be the only one that survives, quote unquote, without some ramification coming from that.
Yeah,
there must be something,
especially with the anger scene. Like,
yes,
so intentional to show like, okay, this is how she was. Like they literally showed us she's an opposite of Mother, right?
And then even in that sequence when she's angry with Soul, you still see this skill disparity because Soul's not even trying.
He wasn't fighting. Really he literally wasn't. He was just like, oh, stop hitting me. And then, oh, there was an explosion, and he literally broke her staff. Like immediately, he was like, wait, what's happening?
Right, which can then lead to her anger being more like, oh, I can't take them on. Okay, I need help.
Yeah,
I need help to take them on, which I could see again. That's planted the seeds for Chimera's connection to them. I don't know. Maybe we shall find out.
So many, like they've actually like given themselves kind of a task with this last episode. Oh, not in a bad way. I guess any show does, but just because there are quite a few, story elements that I'm like, are these random? Are these connected? Are these forgotten?
But even with Jedi Master Venestra, right? Because we know that or at least they're almost alluding that she has some secrets of her own.
But
previous episodes, we assume maybe she might have been or connected to Chimera as well with her whip and his scars. But again, are we going to get all that in one episode? What's that narrative? We've been talking about the Jedi Council. We've never seen the Council, but we're hearing about the effect of how they keep things away from the Council. Are we seeing repercussions of that, or are they setting up for a future narrative? I don't know. We shall find out.
Any questions, but I guess again, it's a good thing that we want to know these things. I just really hope it ties together like a nice bow.
Before we close out, anything else that we haven't mentioned? I think we might have mentioned everything we want to, but just in case. Oh, I loved one line that Mother Anastasia says to them when the Jedi come to almost attack them. When she says, "Someday those noble intentions you have will destroy every Jedi in the galaxy." That foreshadowing.
Spoiler.
Is I loved it because she was right. Order 66, and again, we've talked about how this show has planted the seeds for the hubris of the Jedi and how they become. We start seeing the seeds of them becoming more political and keeping secrets for each other and kind of losing their way slightly, which would end up being used against them in the future. And I thought that line was great.
And the question about that line though is that was she just saying it like, oh, you guys are all terrible, you're all gonna suffer, or is it like, I've seen the future. Oh, you don't worry, honey. You get jealous.
Which I like that because it works both ways. All right, you can interpret it as both ways, because she's a witch. you can interpret it as is a vision she saw.
Yeah.
Or she's just looking at their actions now and just
She's
noticed.
like, yeah, I've seen this before.
Right. Because what I like about her is that as much as she was all about COVID and all that stuff, she always put people, or at least her daughters, first. There's a scene where Coral says to her, and some of the others say, "Oh, yes, you're their mother, but you're also our leader." But she's just like, "Yeah, but I'll choose mother."
Yeah, like, okay.
I'll choose mother. I don't care. I don't care what plans we have for these children.
You can't change mothers. So
yeah,
I mean, yeah.
Whatever plan they had for the girls, whatever plans. She's like we mentioned, she didn't want to go with the plans they had for the girls at the cost of the girls. Right. It still had to be their choice and their want. And as much as it's painful for her, she had to be a mother first before being a leader, which I thought was really well done.
Okay.
Anything else that we haven't mentioned?
I think that was really it.
Yes. What do you nerdies think of this episode and this show so far? Find us on social media at The Nerdie Bunch. And also, we have a new email page. You can email us at, which is thenerdybunchpodcast@gmail.com. So if you have any questions, if you want any insights, find us on social media at The Nerdie Bunch, or find us on email, thenerdybunchpodcast@gmail.com. One more episode to go. I hope this episode's like a 2-hour episode. I don't think it is, but it would be great if it was. Like, these shows sometimes should end like with a movie or something movie length.
More people should do that.
Right. I think that'd be really good. Or at least let's go back to the, I remember, I'm old enough to remember a time where TV shows would give us... No, not just that. TV shows would give us hour-long episodes and the seasons would be like 20 episodes.
22 of that sweet spot.
Right.
Small wheel.
Like we would have like mid-season break at episode 11 for like 2-3 weeks and then come back for another 11 episodes. I miss that. And I think this show would have done well with filler episodes to kind of give us more context into things. Yeah, it would have been great to kind of see these little moments. But again, I'm enjoying the show more than I'm not, even though it's not perfect. That's what I'll say.
I agree.
But on that note, thank you, Andrew.
Thank you, Dave.
My name's English Dave, and this has been a Nerdy Bunch weekly review for the Acolyte, where we talked about episode 7, Choice. And as always, Andrew,
keep it nerdy.
Peace.